Hello and welcome to the MB Om podcast, where you will learn to master the business of yoga with guests from around the world who have experienced becoming successful yoga teachers, studio owners, and much more. Now, here's your host, Amanda Kingsmith.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the MBOM podcast. I'm very excited to be announcing a brand new sponsor that we have for the next couple episodes of the podcast. And this is a company called Fave Yogis. Fave Yogis is the newest yoga app designed specifically with yogis in mind. It was built out of Santa Monica, California by a practicing yogi and software engineer from MIT. Fave Yogis connects yoga students with their favorite yoga teachers through a simple to use app that is free to download. Teachers can post one-time events like workshops and retreats, as well as their regular weekly classes, and students can easily find teachers' offerings from anywhere in the world. You can download Fave Yogis on iOS or Android. Just go into your app store, search Fave Yogis, Favyogis, download for free. When you sign up, use MBOM code to let them know that I sent you. All right, now on to today's episode of the podcast. I am very excited to be joined by Shahar, who is joining me all the way from Germany. And I talk about so many different topics on this episode. She shares her yoga journey, how yoga really helped her heal from depression, how she was inspired to start a business, why she chose Germany, and what the teaching landscape is like in Germany, and so much more. So without further ado, here's Or. I'm very excited to be joined on the podcast today by Shahar, who is joining me all the way from Germany. Welcome to the podcast today, Or.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really great to be chatting with you today. I know you are the founder of Freedom Yoga and doing so much awesome stuff over in Germany, but I thought we could back up a little bit and talk a little bit about how you first discovered yoga and got into it.
Yeah, so I got into yoga around, 14 years ago when I was quite young. I was 18. I have three big sisters, and one of them is a big India fan. It's quite common in Israel, actually. I come originally from Israel. And when I was 18, she wanted to go to India again, and she convinced me and my parents to take me with her. So that was my first trip to India, and this is also the first time when I've done my first yoga course.
That's amazing. And were you immediately hooked into yoga after that first course?
Yeah, kind of. Like I already heard about it from people before, but I never tried it. And when I tried it, I was like, wow, that was really amazing, and I want to keep doing that. And in the first years, it was a bit hard, but as soon as it was more possible for me, I started to practice regularly at the studio. And like everybody, you have times when you practice more, you have times when you practice less. But since then, I was really into it.
That's amazing. And what inspired you to become a yoga teacher?
Yeah, actually it started with, not a very good time in my life. You can say I was very, very depressed, and I was in art college, and from the outside my life looked pretty good. I was recovering also already from depression, but I felt like, there is more to life than that. And I was practicing regularly, like a weekly course, but I felt like I want much, much more. So I took the plane to India again, and there I met Buddhism, and I met, also a very important teacher for me, where I done my first yoga teacher training. Yeah, and that was kind of like the first initial drive to teach, that I found this teacher, and he told me like, you should definitely teach. But it took quite a while until I actually started to teach, like only 3 years later, or even a bit more. When I came to Germany, I really felt like I'm ready to take yoga teacher as a profession. Let's say it like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then I've done my second training and some further trainings. And this is how I got to where I am today.
That's amazing. And so thinking about back to, you've completed your first teacher training and, you come back to, were you living in Israel at that point?
Yeah, I was in India for a while. I was there for 6 months. And then I came back to Israel and kind of kept traveling, and I was teaching a little bit here and there, but nothing very serious. And after 2 years that I was living in Israel, I went back to India. I was there quite a lot, and I was volunteering there in a meditation center. So I've done that for a bit more than a year. And after that, only when I came to Germany, I started to actually teach. And this is when I realized I actually need to do another training. So I stopped teaching, and then I done my second training.
Yeah. Did you just feel like in those couple years between your first training, your second training, that you just weren't ready to teach, or why were you not teaching at that point?
Yeah, it was a combination of things. I think one of them was like the technical and financial situation of my life that was not really enabling going on a journey, like starting to become a yoga teacher. But I think a big part of it was just the feeling that my own practice was not good enough or not deep enough. I didn't felt like I'm quite, maybe educated enough would be the word, but I don't know exactly how to describe it. But I think mostly I felt that, I don't have that much to bring because my own practice was just kind of unregular and not very serious.
Right. I feel like that's not an uncommon place for yoga teachers to be when they come out of their yoga teacher training. Now that you've been teaching for a couple of years, do you look back on that and feel like you could have been teaching earlier, or do you feel like you did what was right for you?
Yeah, I think it was smart to wait. I think it was smart to wait and deepen my practice. Like I could have accumulated more experience. That maybe wasn't that bad of an idea. But I think it was, I'm happy that I waited until I really felt ready. And even more than that, I'm happy that I really made the effort to have a regular and serious and deeper practice before I started to teach, because now when I teach, I see how much it supports me. So I definitely recommend to people that I think you should have a pretty good and stable practice before you start teaching, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that as well. I think it's finding this balance though, because I know one of my kind of things that kind of held me back a little bit, and I started teaching right away, but what I kind of felt was maybe holding me back from feeling ready was that I was like, I can't do like every single pose. And I feel like I look back on that and I'm like, it's not really about being able to do every single asana pose. But I think that you do still have to have, your practice at a certain place, and especially your personal practice at a certain place to begin sharing that with other people.
I totally agree with that. Like, I think that for me, it was more about my self-confidence and what I have to bring as a yoga teacher, which is beyond the yoga poses. I think it also depends a lot on what kind of training do you do. Like, I know that my first training was just pretty short, and it was not very deep, you can say. So I think that was kind of part of what contributed to my insecurity. But definitely I don't think that somebody needs to be perfect in order to teach. That was not at all what I meant. I think that, that you just need to have, like deep roots, in order to really grow. And you see it in yoga posture as well. Like if you do some kind of balancing pose and your roots are not strong enough, then it's kind of, not very stable. So I think it's the same with teaching. If you don't have really deep roots, so you cannot come very high, cannot grow that much.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what took you to Germany? Like, why did you decide to settle in Germany?
Yeah, that's again my crazy sister, actually. It's the same crazy sister. She moved to Germany around 2 years before I did. We have all the family. We have the German citizenship. We kind of inherited it from our grandparents. So, yeah, it was a very long bureaucratical situation, but in the end we got the citizenship back. And more or less half a year after that, my sister was already in Germany. And I was in India at the time, and she was all the time, yeah, you should come, and yeah, you should come. And then at some point I was kind of like ending my time in India, and she got pregnant, and yeah, that's what brought me here, and I really like it here, so I just stayed, and as I said, 5.5 years already here.
Wow. And what's the yoga scene, yoga industry like in Germany?
Yeah, I cannot say for all Germany, because Germany is pretty big, and I live in Berlin, which is also not always very representative for all of Germany. It's quite a unique and strange place. In Berlin there is a lot of yoga going on. There are a lot of teachers, a lot of studios, and a lot of students as well. It's very thriving here on the one hand. On the other hand, sometimes, you have the feeling that there are, more studios and more teachers than, possible for so many students to come. But, I think generally speaking, it's a very open place for yoga, and that's what, for me, kind of makes it, a very good place to live,
Yeah, that's amazing. And so you arrived in Germany, you did your 300-hour teacher training there?
Yeah, I've done actually 500 hours. That's in Germany kind of the standard.
Wow.
I've done 200, and then I could already start teaching, and I also done that. And then I've done 2 more years, 300 more hours. And then I've done also a very short training, but it was very, very interesting, yoga for people with special needs. And that is also something that I've done and still do sometimes for a while.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Have you had an opportunity to teach people with special needs since doing that training?
Yeah, of course. And when I work in Israel, when I lived in Israel, I worked with people with mental disabilities. So this is where I started. And also here in Berlin, I had a few courses. One of them was only for people with special needs. One of them were more mixed. That was a really, really interesting experience, and also through this title of working with people with special needs, so I got senior courses and all kind of interesting offers, which for me was a really great experience that I really recommend to any teacher to try to teach people that have different abilities than what you have, or the people that you used to work with in your teacher training, or even in, normal yoga studios. It's, for me, was a very, very interesting challenge, and definitely a very good learning experience.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like you learned a ton from that. And I think it's also really interesting to be able to offer, programs or workshops or classes to people who are kind of left out from your average offering, you may say. Because I feel like the average yoga class is really geared to people who are, already in pretty good shape, or who are able to use their body, in the way that most people are. And I feel like it does exclude people who are older, or people who have mobility issues, or people who have other types of disabilities, whether it be physical or mental. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to offer classes to those types of people.
Yeah, and the same with seniors, the same with every kind of a group, that it's not the usual crowd of yoga. And I think, again, for me, it was a challenge also in the sense of what physically I can do with them. You need to become really creative, and also in the sense of what yoga really means. What can I teach them that it's maybe not just the physical part, if the physical part is something that is hard for them. And you need to, it was also an intellectual challenge in this way, but also an emotional challenge to just hold space for people that are extremely different from me, and to kind of let go of this image that we have of how a yoga class should look like and how a yogi should look like.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like yoga really should be available to every person, every type of body, no matter what you're going through, physically or mentally. So that's really cool that you've been able to teach that. So at what point did you start your business, Freedom Yoga?
Yeah, so Freedom Yoga was just a name that I had from actually the very beginning when I was just teaching here and there. But I guess the real beginning of my business was around 3 years ago when I started to thinking about offering online courses and yoga videos, and started my blog more than 2 years ago. Yeah, so that was more or less that, I think, around 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit about like the different offerings that you have, on your website, so online and offline?
Yeah, so offline I have like different courses that I teach here around Berlin. I teach in different neighborhoods and different studios. And in my website I offer mostly like options for people that want to deepen their practice. So my main offer for that, it's an online program called Become Your Own Teacher. And the focus there is really of self-exploring different concepts of yoga. It's mostly focused on the theory and philosophy of yoga. Of course, I also talk about the physical part of yoga. I really go from the beginning until the end, like from the ethical part, and then I move to the physical part and to meditation. But it's not like the main focus is not the physical part of yoga. It's just like one of the very wide variety that yoga has to offer us.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like there's so many different aspects to yoga, and it's really easy to get caught up with photos on Instagram that show beautiful poses and think that, yoga is just all about the physical aspect. And really there's so much more that brings yoga together.
Yeah, and this is why I created this program, because I think that there are a lot of people that if you go to weekly classes, you also learn really a lot about asanas, but you don't really understand where is it coming from, or how do you even build these asanas, or why do you do that. So this is all kind of things that I cover in my program.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what do you feel like are some of the biggest business lessons that you've learned from your experience as a yoga teacher, through your trainings, through teaching in Berlin?
Business lessons. It's hard to say. I think just be patient. That was my biggest lesson, and still is, I guess. Things takes longer than you think, always. And things are always more complicated as they look in the beginning. But it's a part of the journey. Like for me, it's a very interesting thing to experience.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's a really good piece of advice. I feel like especially in such a fast-paced world now, there's a lot of people that, they leave their first teacher training and they kind of want to be like this, famous traveling yoga teacher, an international yoga teacher, have 1 million followers on Instagram. And it's, this gentle reminder to kind of, back up, be patient with yourself, know that, anyone who's teaching at festivals or teaching internationally or has that many followers has worked really hard to get there. It didn't just happen overnight, and it doesn't happen overnight for anyone. Yeah,
I was just reading some kind of a business ebook this week. I obviously wouldn't I don't want to name the ebook, but they make it look so easy. You just do this and this and that, and you will become internationally famous. And I was like, yeah, I can do this and this and that, but it's not, as easy as some business people might want to make you feel it is. I don't think it has to be necessarily very hard. Like, I don't think it's smart to come with the attitude of this is going to be really hard and take forever. And that also didn't work for me very well, I have to say. But yeah, I think patient, I mean it also in the sense of just, taking every situation as it is, just handling it in the best way possible, and not being in a rush and not coming with certain expectations. And I think it's very same with your yoga practice. Like, it's the same advice I would give for yoga practice. Definitely about, dreaming big and aiming, to high goals. And you still need to start very small and just take it step by step and gradually. And definitely, but I also would advise with practice and with business, it's to just start, the only thing that I'm really sorry about it, I didn't start my blog earlier. Like, I thought about blogging for at least a year and a half before I actually started to do that. And I think, I should have started directly as the idea came to my mind, and I shouldn't waited with it.
Yeah. What do you feel like held you back for that year and a half?
Yeah, first of all, I didn't have any idea where to start. And I was so kind of like, oh, no, I don't know what to do. That I didn't even bother to do a serious research, because the moment that I decided I want to do this and I started to do at least a little bit of research, it was not as nearly as complicated as I thought. Like, that's maybe the thing. Like, some things you think that are very complicated and they become really easy, and some things it's totally the other way around. So I think that was for me the main thing, that I just felt like, like opening a blog, you need to, I also had quite a unrealistic expectation, like you need to post every week or you need to post every day. And when I started to do some research, I found out that a lot of people post only every 2 weeks or even once a month. And now I'm kind of an average of 2 to 3 weeks. In the last 2 months, even a bit less. But again, the same as with the yoga practice, regularly it's more important, and quality is more important than quantity.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's such a transferable type of lesson. Like, I always try to think about quality over quantity. Like, when it comes to, how many classes I teach, or how many blog posts I post, or how many followers I have on Instagram, or how many people are in like the private community. And like, it's always quality over quantity. It's easy to get attached to like, oh, I want to put out a blog post every day, but if it's not quality, then is it really creating value for the people who are reading? I think that readers would prefer to tune in every couple of weeks and have something that's really thoughtful and well written, as opposed to something that's, kind of rushed out every single day.
Yeah, I very much agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's easy to, especially with things like starting a blog or starting a website, to kind of, have it in your head that it's going to be really, really difficult to create that. And I found that that's one of the biggest things that I try to like let people know, is that it's, often not as hard as you think it is.
Yeah, as I said, it really depends, and I guess it also changes from person to person and from situation to situation. But I think it's, again, I'm coming back to this point with patience. Like, you just need to be patient with yourself, also in the sense of knowing that your first blog post will probably not be your best, and you get better with the time, but you just have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I remember I started my first podcast, which is a travel podcast that I co-host with my boyfriend, just a little over 3 years ago. And we were kind of like nervous to put it out there because, that's like out on the internet on iTunes for anyone to listen. And I was like, I feel like we kind of suck a little bit. But somebody told me along that journey, if you don't look back on episode 1 of that and be like, wow, that's kind of bad, that means that you haven't improved. And so it's really nice to be able to see how much you've learned and how much you've improved. And so that's something that I apply to, my yoga practice, thinking about the first time I went to a class, my first class that I ever taught. my first online video that I made, my first podcast episode, my first blog post, it's always going to be not as good as maybe you want it to be, but there's always room to grow and learn from there, which is amazing.
Yeah, and in a way, this is the only way to grow and learn. Like, if you don't try, you don't know. And yeah, that is also my experience also with business. Like, if I don't try, I don't know. And this is kind of like my motto in the last 3 years, I just try it out and I just come very open. Like, if it will work, it will be great. If it will be easy, it will be great. If it will be difficult, that's also okay. Like, just to come with a very open mind of I just try. It's like my Zen master, he calls it like try mind. You just try and try and try, and all the time comes with this kind of open trying mind, not without too many expectations.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. So you mentioned that starting a blog was something you wished you'd started earlier, and then when you did do it, it actually ended up being easier than you originally thought. Were there some things within, creating your business that you expected to be easier that were actually harder?
Yeah, online marketing, generally speaking, like writing blogs and posting the blogs, I find it very hard. But for example, social media, I thought it would be easier for me to do because, I was always before also on social media. But when you market your business on social media, it's like a totally different game. It's not comparable with using social media as a private person. And that is an example of something that was and is still much more complicated than I thought it would be.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that as well. I feel like it's like Pinterest is one that comes to mind for me. I was like, oh, I love using Pinterest. Like, I'll use Pinterest for my business. And I was like, wow, this is actually a lot harder than it is to just like scroll through and pin things I'm interested in.
Yeah, I don't even try Pinterest. I have no idea how that works. But yeah, social media as a business owner, it's still a challenge sometimes. Yeah, it's just much more work
definitely.
than you think it would be. Yeah.
Right. What are a few of the things that you've learned about online marketing and social media as you've kind of, taken these baby steps to try and understand it and make it work for your business?
Yeah, I'm not an expert. I feel quite uncomfortable to say that I have an advice on this. But I think what I learned, what we said before, quality over quantity. Yeah, that's for me was the main lesson. Mostly with social media, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's a really good point. Cool. And so one of your other offerings that you mentioned while we were offline before we started recording was that you do a kind of a unique yoga teacher training program. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's actually the program I already talked about. It's not, it's kind of, it can be an alternative for yoga teacher training because I think that a lot of people come to their training without really wanting to teach, which is totally okay and totally normal. I think it's actually pretty common. And what I offer with my program, Become Your Own Teacher, it's things that partially you learn in a yoga teacher training, but without actually learning how to teach, like only the parts that you kind of learn for yourself. So if you're going to do a training and you're doing it mostly for yourself, so my program might be an alternative for you. Because as I said, I go really thoroughly from the very basic concepts of yoga until the very, the very complicated, but the quite complicated parts of yoga. And that's kind of, like for me also, it kind of, the focus is more on deepening your own practice and on really going on a journey of self-exploration, you can say. Like a big part of the program is homework that I give and kind of questions that I suggest that you might ask yourself or you might explore, or different exercises that you might want to try out. And I also give feedback on that if people want to. So, that's more or less what I do in my training. And I think it's good also as an alternative, but also, as I said, for some people that maybe already done their teacher training, but they don't feel comfortable enough in their yoga theory and philosophy. And yeah, this may be a good place for them to pick it up and deepen also their own practice before they start to teach.
Yeah, I love that. It's really cool that you offer something that's so unique. Do you teach that in person or just online?
Yeah, right now it's only online. I'm working on making like a series of workshops in one of the studios where I work right now. But yeah, like right now it's online, and I think online it's a good platform for that because, yeah, you work mostly with yourself and you don't have so much influence from other people like you would have in a group.
Yeah, definitely. And then I know another thing that I saw on your website when I was learning a little bit more about you is that you've got some online videos. Can you talk a little bit about what the process was like to create those and get those online?
Yeah, that's quite a production, but it was a lot of fun, I have to say. Like, the best advice that I can give on that is to find a good camera person that you feel comfortable with. And yeah, it was just like full days of just shooting the videos and editing them. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's great. What do you feel like you've learned from that endeavor, I guess you could say? Yeah, find the right camera person and definitely invest some money and invest some time in it, because I was trying to do it by myself in the beginning or with my sister, again, the same sister, but it's not the same. And if you really want to have, like for me, it was at least like that if I really wanted to also enjoy the process, it was definitely much more enjoyable when I can trust the person behind the camera and I know that all the technical stuff are taken care of and I can take care of what I'm really good at, which is, teaching. Yeah. I feel like you touched on something really important there. I think that sometimes people kind of get caught up in and I've definitely been guilty of this for sure, is like wanting to do it all yourself or maybe save money, or maybe feeling like you don't have the finances for it. But always coming back to like, what is your unique skill that you offer? And I feel like, if you're a yoga teacher, maybe you have video editing skills, but I think for a lot of us, like we teach well. And remembering that that's what we can really offer and that there's somebody else who does like really good video production.
Yeah, and that's true for business generally speaking. There's also something that I learned with time, like really to detect where are my skills, what am I good at, what do I enjoy doing, and what do I really suck at, and what do I better outsource, or things that just don't bring me any joy at all, but I know that are still important to my business, so I can see, according to my abilities, how much I can outsource from that. And I see that even if I outsource just one thing that it's really heavy on me, it already creates more space, even if I cannot afford, to outsource everything I need to outsource or everything I want to. Yeah, like always, according to wish and ability, that's always the best kind of way to not go over your top and do too much, but also not to put too little on yourself.
Yeah, for sure. What do you feel like are some of the top things that are important for you to outsource?
Yeah, as I said, like helping out with reaching out, online marketing, things like that.
Yeah, and then your video production as well, I guess, then, hey?
Yeah, like video production, like camera, I like to outsource, but I actually kind of like to edit. So a lot of the editings I was doing by myself, and I'm still doing by myself. Yeah, also there it changes. It also depends on what kind of a video I want to do. But yeah, camera is definitely something that if I can afford, I would very much like to outsource. But it's unfortunately not always possible.
Yeah. Do you have, so if anyone's listening and they're like, oh, well, this sounds all good, but, I teach full time and, I'm barely making enough money to get by and I'm already teaching a lot of classes. Do you have any tips for becoming, a sustainable full-time yoga teacher?
Yeah. to be very, very honest, I also don't teach full time. I still have a small job that I keep on the side just to be safe. I think it's a process. Like, I think that for me, there were times when I was just a yoga teacher full time, and it was just too much stress. Like, it sounds quite, some kind of strange maybe, like to be a full-time yoga teacher is stressful, but it was not financially easy enough so I can say, okay, this is sustainable and I can do it now for a longer period of time. And actually for me right now, keeping my job, which is also something that I like to do, and it's also something in the social area, so I work with people that really need me there. So it's actually very good for me that I have this stable basis, and then with my yoga career, I can advance in my own rhythm, and I can play, I have more freedom.
I don't think that's strange at all. I've actually, that's kind of been my process with teaching yoga as well. And I've actually never really desired to teach yoga just full time, because I've looked at days when I teach, say I teach 5 classes, and it's just absolutely exhausting to the point where it doesn't even feel fun. It takes away, what I loved about yoga before I was a yoga teacher. And I was like, I don't want to do this to myself. So I was like, I'm just not going to.
And to my students.
Yeah, totally. I think that students, everyone has energy and stuff, and it's kind of what you put out there. And I feel like if you're showing up to your 5th class and you're hungry and you're tired and, you're doing the math on how much you're making in your head and you're feeling a bit resentful about that, I feel like they pick up on that, and that kind of taints the entire energy of that class. And it's like they're paying customers, like they came there to feel really good. And as a yoga teacher, you want to provide that, but if you're exhausted, it's really hard to do that.
Yeah, for me, it's not so much about making them feel good. I don't have this need that much as, as a paying customer, but I do want to be inspiring. Maybe that's a better word for that. And there is nothing inspiring in a starving, resenting, stressed out yoga teacher. That's something I needed to learn the hard way. If I'm stressed out, people see it at some point or another, and that's just not inspiring. And I want to come in a position when I can be inspiring for people.
Yeah, definitely.
So if it means that, I spend my mornings doing something else, so that's what it means. Yeah,
especially if it's something that you love to do, because I think that it's totally okay, and I think it's great to have other interests outside of, your passion and love for yoga.
Yeah, and I hope to be able to be a yoga teacher full time at some point, but my situation right now is just like that, and I still teach almost every day. So that works out for me, and this is maybe something that for some people would be also to recommend, not to put the pressure on yourself to become a full-time yoga teacher right away, because as I said, something just take longer than you think. And you need to be an adult and just take care of yourself first.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. I'm curious if somebody is listening and they can definitely relate to, what we're talking about right now with teaching more part-time and keeping another side job on top of teaching. How do you manage your teaching schedule with your other work schedule?
Yeah, I keep just very strict boundaries. Like I told my boss at my job that I work only in the mornings, and then I teach only in the afternoons and evenings. So that's actually pretty easy way to do that. And in between, I always take a break. I always go home. I eat, a serious lunch, so I still have enough energy for the second part of my day. I take my dog for a walk, so I have a little bit of a break also in between. It's also something that I always make sure that I have this time for myself in between. Yeah, and just to keep these boundaries.
Right. Yeah. I think that is really important. Did you find that it was hard to get your regular teaching schedule because you were working another job, or did that kind of just happen organically?
Yeah, I also didn't start it with 4 classes or 5 classes a week as I have now. I started with 1 class, and then I got offered another class there, and then the school offered me another class, and then I started to teach in the studio, and then I left there. It's grew organically. I didn't start it with the amount of classes I have now, and I also now reduced. Like now I teach only 4 classes. I had 5 or 6 before, but it was a bit too much. So yeah, and it can grow again next year. Like it's always changing and developing.
Yeah, I think that it comes back to what we were talking about before with patience. I think that, again, a lot of people kind of want to start teaching and just be teaching quite a bit. And I think that my experience as a new teacher was, similar to yours, where I kind of started talking about wanting to teach. And then I started, meeting studio owners and getting more involved in the different studios that I was interested in. And then, getting one class, and then that was building up more and more. Until it was like a couple different classes a week. But I feel like it definitely wasn't like, okay, I'm a yoga teacher now. Like, here's your 7 classes in a week. Like, have fun, teach.
Yeah, that would be a dream. Like, if I always say, like, if it would be possible to, get employed in a place that offer you, 7, 8, 10 classes a week, then definitely go and do that. That will be a dream of every yoga teacher. But these kind of positions, they are not quite rare, if even, existing. So you just need to start where you are and start with what you have and how much you can teach. But I think in the beginning, and I think I heard it in one of your podcasts as well, that you kind of do need this yes mentality in the beginning. Like I just said yes to a bunch of stuff, senior classes. I never thought I would do something like that. I've done children courses, didn't work out as well as the seniors. I've done all kinds of stuff. I just said yes to every offer I got, and I just sent my offers to quite a lot of, quite wide range of places also. So in the beginning, you need this yes mentality and just take whatever you can. And with the time, I build up what I like, what I can, what is working for me, and what not. And I became, now, after a few years, I can become more picky.
Yeah, definitely. I am a huge fan of saying yes to find your no's. I think that applies to so many different parts of life and so many different careers. And, just like you found, you taught children's yoga and it's like, nope, that's not what I'm going to do. And I think that it's such a great way to figure out what exactly you want to teach and what you enjoy teaching and, who you resonate with and that sort of thing.
Yeah, like I would thought that this is why I also sent my offerings to this school, because I thought like, I love kids. I work with kids all the time. Like I was babysitting since I remember myself, and I work in different social educational organizations for many, many years. But then I was just there, and I was teaching yoga for kids, and it didn't work out at all. Like the style of my yoga teaching just doesn't work with kids, and I couldn't know that if I didn't try it out. So, especially in the beginning, I said, I think it's good to say yes to everything, because you just need to build your confidence and you need to build your experience. And I couldn't do it if I was teaching just once a week or once in 2 weeks or, subbing once in a while. I needed to have regular classes and as many as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I found the same thing when I started out as well. Was there anything else that you learned when you were like a new yoga teacher that you feel like you could share with new yoga teachers out there who are tuning into this?
Yeah, my main advice, I think I already said that it's first to deepen your own practice and make sure that even if you teach, you still keep your own practice, whatever that means to you. Like for me, for sometimes it was just doing my meditation every day. Whatever that means to you, to keep just some kind of a practice. And as I said, I also advise mostly to new teachers to teach groups that are outside, the normal yoga world, you can say. Like mostly like seniors, I think a lot of people had a very good experience with that. It's a really great experience. Like they are usually really sweet, and they're very patient, but it's still kind of a challenge also because they come from a very different world than you come. Like, at least for me, it was like that. Like, I was teaching, German grandmothers from, East Germany. It's very different from what I usually know and work with. And as I said, it also as a yoga teacher is a challenging thing to really think, what do I do with them? How do I find a way which they can connect to yoga, which can contribute to their life in a bigger sense, more than just, this 1 hour that they come to stretch a bit. And also how I find exercises for them.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it's really, really awesome that you were able to do that. And I think that that's really good advice for new yoga teachers as well, is kind of, just dive outside of your comfort zone. I think especially when I think about myself as a new yoga teacher, and I still am a new yoga teacher in a lot of ways, but it's, I was thinking about, I want to teach, in a yoga studio, I want to teach vinyasa flow. It's just this very kind of like standard type of thing that I was looking for. And I wasn't thinking outside of the box as to what I could offer and who I could be teaching to.
Yeah, I think I wrote a guest blog about it quite a long time ago. It's called like letting go of the perfect yoga class. Like, we have this, this image in our mind, how the perfect class looks like. And that creates so many obstacles in teaching. And if you slowly, and a lot through, teaching different people and in different places, I just kind of had to let go of this image, of how a yoga class needs to look like. And that was, especially as a young teacher, a really great experience.
Yeah, that's awesome.
When you teach in the class itself, like, we always have this sense of like how the student should look like, and, to make sure that their poses also look perfect and that they can reach, the full potential or the full pose or something like that. And yeah, I think for me, from the beginning, it wasn't very important. But when I worked with seniors and I worked with people with special needs, it made it even more clear to me that you just need to let go of it. You just need to leave the person and accept the person where they are. And that was also, I think, in and of itself was a really great experience and something that I really recommend, new teachers to try.
Amazing. Do you have anything else that you want to share with listeners today, Or?
Yeah, I think that the messages I always try to give is to keep practicing, just keep deepening your practice. And even if you think that you got to a pretty good place, there is even so much more to yoga than what you can experience in a weekly class. And I really recommend to try to explore more and more because it just brings so much back. With my spiritual practice, it's always a much deeper level of security and a much deeper level of exploration that one can experience.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, and of course, this is why I also see it as my mission, to really help people to deepen their own practice, to practice more regularly. This is why I was kind of called to open my online business, because I felt I can give you quite a lot in a weekly class, but it's so, it's still so little.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And so where can people go to find out more about you, to check out your online offerings and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so the best place is freedomyoga.info. Also a very, very old domain that I just happen to have. So freedomyoga.info, and you can also find me on the Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, Freedom Yoga, or just one word.
Okay, perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Or. It's been a really, really pleasure. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, with you too. Thank you very, very much for having you on your lovely podcast.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for sharing all your insights and learnings with all the people out there listening.
Yeah, thank you.
So I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the podcast with Or Shahar and that you learned lots from her experience. As always, a huge thank you to Or for coming on the podcast, and a huge thank you to the sponsor for the show, Fave Yogis. Make sure you go download their app and let them know that I sent you, and go check them out. They are up to some awesome stuff, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for them as they grow as a business. For photos, links, and more about what we talked about on today's episode of the show, go to the show notes at www.mbomyoga.com. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Mastering the Business of Yoga. You can also join our private online community, Yoga Business Badasses. Just search that on Facebook and I will let you in. As always, thank you so much for listening, and namaste.